Chapter 1, Mishnah 1. Most of this chapter deals with the laws of Zomimim witnesses. If witnesses testify that they saw an event take place in a certain place at a certain time, and a second pair of witnesses then testify that they saw the first witnesses in a different place at that time, we believe the second witnesses and the first witnesses' testimony is disqualified. The disqualified witnesses are called Zomimim witnesses. The Torah states in Deuteronomy 19:19, "You shall do to a Zomim witness as he planned to do to his brother." This teaches that Zomimim witnesses are given whatever punishment they had intended to cause to the defendant with their testimony. For example, if they testified that a person committed a murder and is thus liable to the death penalty, they are given the death penalty. If they testified that someone owes a sum of money, they must pay that amount of money. In certain cases, though, the Zomimim witnesses cannot be punished with what they wanted to do to the defendant. The Mishnah discusses how they are punished in such cases. How are witnesses punished for being Zomimim? If they cannot be given the punishment they try to inflict on the defendant. The Mishnah gives an example of such a case and states how the witnesses are punished. Witnesses said, "We testify that so-and-so, who is assumed to be a Kohen, is the son of a divorced woman, or the son of a chalutza, a woman who performed chalitza, and he is thus not a qualified Kohen." If the witnesses are found to be Zomimim, we do not say that each Zomim witness should be punished with what he tried to cause to the defendant, and thus he should be considered like the son of a divorced woman or the son of a chalutza, i.e. he should be disqualified from being a Kohen instead of the defendant. This is because such a punishment would extend to their children, and Zomim witnesses may not be punished in a way that extends to their children. Rather, each Zomim witness receives 40 lashes, Makkos, which is the punishment given to Zomim witnesses who cannot be given the punishment they tried to cause to the defendant. The Mishnah gives another case where Zomim witnesses cannot be punished with what they wanted to do to the defendant. This case involves the law of exile. If someone kills another person inadvertently, he must go into exile in one of several cities of refuge. The Mishnah discusses witnesses who falsely claim that someone is required to go into exile. Witnesses said, "We testify that so-and-so killed someone inadvertently and therefore must go into exile to a city of refuge if they are found to be Zomimim. We do not say that they should be punished with that they try to do to the defendant, and accordingly, each Zomimim witness should go into exile instead of the defendant, because only a person who actually killed someone inadvertently can be punished with exile. Rather, since they cannot be given the punishment they wanted to cause to the defendant, each Zomimim witness receives 40 lashes. Usually, when Zomimim witnesses try to obligate a person to pay a sum of money, they must pay that sum. The Mishnah gives cases where Zomimim do not have to pay the full amount that they try to make the defendant pay. The first case involves witnesses who try to obligate a man to pay his wife her ksuba, the money, that a husband or his estate must pay his wife if he divorces her or dies before her. Witnesses said, "We testify that so-and-so divorced his wife. It is known that the husband did not pay his wife's ksuba, since he must pay her the ksuba when he divorces her. According to this testimony, he is now obligated to pay her the ksuba." The witnesses were then found to be Zomimim, and therefore must pay the amount of money that they intended the defendant, i.e. the husband, to lose. Although they tried to make the husband pay the ksuba, that might not have been an actual loss, because either today or tomorrow he might eventually have to pay his wife's ksuba anyway, if he dies or actually divorces her. On the other hand, if the wife will die before the husband, he will never have to pay the ksuba, and in that case, the testimony of the Zomimim witnesses would have caused him to lose the full value of the ksuba. How then do we calculate the loss that the Zomimim tried to cause the husband? The Mishnah explains how to determine the amount that the Zomimim must pay. We assess how much a person would be willing to pay this woman to buy the rights to her ksuba, so that if she is widowed or divorced, the buyer will collect the ksuba instead of her. But if she dies before her husband will inherit her and be exempt from paying the ksuba, and the buyer will not get anything. This sum is the amount that the ksuba is worth right now. Thus, this is the amount that the Zomimim tried to make the husband lose, and this is what they must pay. Another case in which Zomimim witnesses pay less than the amount they tried to make the defendant pay. Witnesses said, "We testify that so-and-so owes his friend 1,000 zuz, and it was stipulated that he must pay that money within 30 days. But the defendant says, I admit that I owe the money, but the stipulation was that I pay it within 10 years, not 30 days. The witnesses were then found to be Zomamim and must therefore pay the amount they tried to make the defendant lose. Although they tried to make the defendant pay 1,000 zuz, he would not have lost that amount since he admits that he owes it. He simply would have had to repay the debt earlier. The value of this loss is calculated as follows. We assess how much a person would pay if he has a loan of 1,000 zuz, and instead of having to repay it within 30 days, he can extend the loan and repay it within 10 years. This is the value of the loss that the Zomamim tried to cause to the defendant, and this is the amount that they pay."